Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Even Live exclusive. I am Barrington Grant, host of the All Even podcast. This is Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz. We have Matt Cataruzolo at the top left. We have today a kicking legend, Martin Gramatica, Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's also a broadcaster now. He's the host of the Martin Gramatica show. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So
I'm multitasking here. My kid's playing soccer on that side over there. So
listen, that's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it.
They never throw any games this early, but today they're like, yeah, it's earlier game. So I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, how's the weather out there? It's good, right?
Oh, it's beautiful, man. I got this vest on just because I'm a Florida boy, but if not, I'm.
All right, so just going into things, Martin. So let's go through your high school days. I do know that you picked up football in your senior year in high school. Take me through that process in regards to like when the coach came up to you and offered you that position or asked you to play. Like what was going through your mind? Because I know you have a soccer background. I know soccer was your favorite sport. Holding that World Cup trophy was always the dream.
Absolutely.
Not hoisting a Vince Lombardi trophy or anything like that. So, how long did it actually take you to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do this?
Boy, it actually took about 3 years. Because my brother and I were the only two soccer players in the town. It's a smaller town here in Florida, and you play your normal sports, football, basketball, baseball, and you do the seasons. So they knew we were the soccer players, and I would have to travel to Fort Myers, which at the time, with that 2-lane road, it would take you an hour and a half to get to practice. So I literally left school and went straight to soccer practice pretty much. So I really didn't get to do much of the after school activities or the other sports because I just love soccer. But they asked me for every year, you play soccer, can you help? And I just didn't want to do it because I was so focused in the soccer. And then my senior year, I don't know why, I decided to say, all right, I only have 1 year left. I'll help you guys out. Basically, to like, listen, let me see if I can help the school out. And after the first practice, we had a restaurant. The coach would came over to, to the restaurant. Like, oh, this kid's going to be amazing. He's going to go to college, pros. And it really wasn't that we were that good because Bill started kicking at the same time. So he played JV and I played varsity. But they before I started kicking for our school, an O lineman was kicking straight on. So, anything soccer style would look a lot better. So that's why they had never seen anybody kick soccer style. So that's why they were so excited. But it wasn't that we were that good. It was just we were much better than an O lineman kicking straight on.
Right.
It's so interesting that, you were somebody that picked up football at such a later age. A lot of these kids now are playing this game at 8, 9 years old, even if it's at the flag football level, they're playing it so young. You were able to pick it up so late, which, it leads me to think, when you got your scholarship opportunity at K-State, right? Like, what were your expectations? Because you being so new to the sport, you were originally a soccer guy, and then you go to Kansas State on a football scholarship. I mean, your expectations must not have been that high. Was it, Martin? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, my mentality is, once I do something, I wanted to go to the top, and
Right.
I wanted to play professional soccer. So, once I started kicking, I said I got to play pro. That was my goal, and I wasn't. And I know it's a bad message to send to the youth, but I went to college because I had to go to college to go to the pros. I really, didn't take it serious. I didn't like it, and it's really bad to say now at 45, but at the time. That's the way I felt. I knew that I wanted to go to the pros. That's it. That's all I could think of. And it was more for, the financial side. I loved competing, but I also needed my family. We came, we had a family restaurant, so it wasn't like we had a lot. So that was my way out. So I put everything into it, but getting to Kansas State was kind of eye-opening because I went from thinking that I'd be the man right away to fifth string. So I'm like, look, now I gotta work and beat some guys out. And then I always say the biggest blessing in my career was tearing my ACL. I tore my ACL going into my junior year because I played as a true freshman. So I played 2 years. My junior year, 3 days before the first game, I tear my ACL. And then my years after the ACL were the best 2 years. And that, I think, had to do with the therapy and the recovery and really training my body different. I didn't know how to lift weights. I never touched a weight till I got to college, really. I just, when you play soccer back in the day, you run, stretch, and run some more. That was it. You weren't really in the gym a lot. So I think that ACL injury taught me how to train and how to prepare, how to get my body ready. And the last 2 years were my best 2 years. And I think my junior year, you go 19 for 20 and winning the Lou Grossa, that's when I said, oh man, I got a chance to play pro. After that, before that, obviously it was way far away. It was a dream, but it was like, it looked far away. After that junior year, I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Martin, building a little bit off that, winning the Lou Grossa Award as the nation's top kicker in 1997, was it at that moment where you kind of realized, wow, kicking is actually what I was, almost even destined to do, and it kind of fueled your fire a little bit more once you were made into the pros?
Well, I think just the confidence that it gave me, because coming off an injury and coming off 2 okay years, my freshman year I was 7 of 10, and then 8 of 9. So it wasn't like I had kicked a lot. It wasn't I hadn't even kicked anything over like 45 yards the first 2 years. So I was just average. So my junior year when going 19 for 20 and with a long of 55. And I think I had 450 plus yarders. So I felt like, man, I have the leg strength. I have the accuracy. I think I can do this. But prior to that, it was just a dream, but I really wasn't good enough to do it. So, but once I got the confidence from doing well that junior year, and then my senior year, obviously with the 65 yarder, I think that opened up a lot of doors and opened a lot of eyes. And I believe that's why I was able to get drafted so high, because at one point, there was three or four kickers that were pretty close to, at one point it was Chris Brown, who ended up playing, in the NFL for a long time, Chris Saylor out of UCLA, and there was a kid out of Tennessee. So it was the 4 of us, and that kick separated me. That kick put me on top. The rest of the guys either were free agents or late round picks. So I think that those 2 years really did mold me and gave me the confidence to know that I could play.
65 yards. Jesus Christ. That's ridiculous. Oh boy. If I could, I would love to ask this, because obviously you have that 65-yard field goal under your belt, and that's incredibly impressive. I was always curious, like, at what point does a field goal become hard? I guess it depends on the guy you're talking to, right? But I feel like, is it at 40 yards where it becomes really tough? 45 yards is impossible. Like at what point does it become really tough for a kicker to make one?
Well, it depends on what side of the bed you wake up on, because there's days that if you wake up on the right side of the bed, it doesn't matter. There's games that I feel like coach put me in wherever, I'll make it, you just feel that confident and you can't really explain why, either warm ups or you make a couple early kicks and then you just like, whatever. And then there's days where you're not confident, you're not feeling well. And then I'll tell the coach, look, an extra point feels far. So there's really no yardage where you can say hard or not hard. They do expect you to make everything inside 40. Inside 40 is like the parameter where you have to make everything inside 40. And then, from there, the percentages drop a little bit, but, there's really no explanation of what's far. I mean, it all depends obviously on guys' leg strength as well. Right. Some guys may feel comfortable a certain distance. Right now, these days, these guys are so strong and accurate. It's crazy how strong and accurate kickers are these days. Well, a lot of it has to do with I'm sure they're ex-soccer players. They're all better athletes. Back in the day, I always tell a story, like when I came into the league, the punters and kickers would kick a little bit and then go play golf, and the mentality of the kicker has changed now. These guys are part of the team. They're training with the team. They're working out with the team. So I think that's why they're so much better. They're stronger and obviously more accurate as well.
Yeah, so, going into that, I definitely wanted to ask a question about that. So, when you got drafted by the Bucs, third round, being a kicker getting drafted in the third round is really, really impressive because, teams never really try to go that high for a kicker. They normally wait, later rounds or even undrafted, and they give guys tryouts and stuff like that. So you being a third round pick going to the Bucs, like, what was your what was the team's expectations for you? What was the expectations for yourself? And what did you see? Like, what was the difference between the regular position players and kickers in regards to preparation?
Well, the thing that I felt was a lot of pressure, to make sure that prove the team right. I didn't want them to say, look, we wasted a draft pick on a third round draft pick on a kicker and he's horrible. So I always put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure I lived up to whatever the expectations of the team were. They never really told me you had to be 80%, 90%. They never really told me why, but they just expect you to make everything. So I felt that extra pressure, and I feel like early on, I felt confidence, from, a lot of the veterans helped me out as well. We had great leaders on that team, Hall of Famers like Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Lynch, these guys, Rondé, Allstott. So they gave me so much confidence right away, and they welcomed me into the team. So normally, you got to pay your dues, and I didn't really feel like I had to do that. I think these guys accepted me right away, and I think that helped. That helped me feel confident. And then I started on a streak. I ended up kicking pretty well early on, and I think that gave Coach Dungy confidence to put me out there pretty much anywhere, and also gave my team confidence to know, look, we got a kicker that we can rely on, and luckily it worked out. I think it was a combination of everything. A great leadership by Tony Dungy, and then the leaders in the locker room helped me feel right at home. I never felt like a rookie. I never was treated like a rookie, like, pushed aside or whatever. I felt right at home. I was fortunate to have a veteran. Mark Royal's a veteran punter, so he kind of showed me the ropes. And then Tom Tupa came next, who's another veteran. So I was fortunate that in my younger years, I had veteran punters that could help me out as well.
Were you hazed as a rookie?
That's the awesome thing about being on Dungy's team. He didn't believe in it. So
oh, wow.
I'm like, thank God, because I'm not a good singer. I'm definitely not a good dancer. So I'm like, man, I'll definitely make a fool of myself. But I did almost get, the only thing that we're required to do is buy breakfast for the team. And then you go, first round. So Booger McFarland bought the first week. Sean King was second. He bought second. So mine was the third week. By the time we get to the third week, and, the difference, that one buck was we had the worst facility in the NFL. And we didn't know that because I never seen any other ones. So we ate in a hallway. It was catered food. We didn't have a chef. We didn't have a cafeteria. So the guys kind of came up to me when it was my week. They're like, look, man, we're tired of the food. We love the food, but we eat the same thing. It's always like Cuban sandwich press. That's pretty much like the go-to meal. So they're like, and breakfast was the same breakfast. They're like, can you do something else, cater something else? So what do? I'm lazy. And I go to the same guy and I go, listen, just disguise it. I want to hire you guys. It's easy. You guys are here. Just bring something else. Just make sure it's not you guys. Come in early, get out. We agreed on it. Perfect. So apparently when I'm showing up my normal time, the guys usually get there a little early because they got to eat and stuff, and then they go to meetings. We have the luxury of showing up just a little bit later, not late, but we don't have to go to meetings right away. So we have a little bit more time. So I show up, and all of a sudden I hear that the O-linemen are looking for me. And they're looking to tape me to the post, throw me in the ice tub. They are so pissed because the food wasn't to their standards. And I'm like, what happened? I'm thinking like, what happened? So the caterer did the same food. I'm like, what are you doing, man? I made it clear to you. And the dude's from Chile, so we talked in Spanish. So I'm like, look, there was no misunderstanding here, buddy. I told you what we needed to do. So, but the best thing is, Warren Sapp jumps up and he's like, man, nobody messes with my kicker. Nobody touches my kicker. And all of a sudden, like, he had my back. So I'm like little Superman out there. Like, nobody's touching me now. I feel good. And that's the week we end up kicking a game winner. So I was like, man, thank God Sapp saved me. We kicked the game winner, so the guys actually like me now. So it was a week that I think a lot of things turned around that week for me.
Very cool.
With all the kind of the plethora of characters that were a part of that Buccaneers team in the early 2000s, I think one that we're all so interested in, especially as of late, was Coach John Gruden. Do you have any specific funny or standout memories, especially from your rookie year, from Coach Gruden?
Man, he was great at motivating. He coached me at the Senior Bowl coming out of college, and then when we reunite ourselves in Tampa, he's like, man, I wanted to draft you in Oakland. I couldn't get you. The Bucs got you too high, but I'm glad I have you now. So the first thing he did, and even to the media, this is the best kicker in the league. He's going to kick a lot of game winners. He's going to help us win a lot of games. So he gave me so much confidence. Not that Dungy didn't, but it's a new coach. You don't know what to expect, and then you have Gruden that's super motivator. And I just there's really, the stories are like, what you see on TV is what you get. He's that energetic. He's that that crazy, but it's a good crazy, like a fun crazy to be around, because he's obviously when he gets mad, yes, you're gonna have to beep a lot of the words he's gonna say, and he's gonna go after guys, but if you have thick skin, you should be okay, because he's going to let you know how he feels. He's going to go after you if you're not performing, if you're not. So I appreciated that. You know, I wanted to know where I stood with my coach. I didn't want a coach to sugarcoat things and then cut me the next day. So I was fortunate enough to have a lot of coaches that were straightforward, you know, and let me know how they felt about me.
Yeah, it's just so interesting with Coach Gruden too, because and these guys are expecting it. I do a Gruden impression, at least some sort of semblance of a Gruden impression.
Oh man, I gotta get it.
You're damn right, we're expecting it.
I'll tell you what, man. Like it's that kind of a deal.
Hey man, you scared me right there. I'm like, where is he?
I really like this guy Odell Beckham Jr., man. No, but in all seriousness, though,
but you know what? You know it's funny. Like that voice, you're perfect at it. But it was like he used to get so mad when we had to kick a field goal because he was mad that we didn't get the first down. So I'm like, dude, I'm your kid. So I would hear him just cuss, you know, like field goal, like just like I don't know if it's podcast if I can cuss or not, but you can only imagine, you know, what he would say. And then I would see him, and I'm like, man, I would look at him like, come on, man, we're gonna don't get so mad. We're trying to get 3 points here.
I'm your guy.
I'm here, and he's cussing and yelling, and he's so mad we didn't get the first down. And he's got his finger up, and just, you know, so yeah, that voice, man, you're perfect at it though.
Glenn on, love you, man. No, but in all seriousness though, you know, something that I've talked about on my show a lot, and I know that we've discussed as a group also, is, you know, just a coach's biggest job, and this is my personal opinion on this, a coach's biggest responsibility is to instill culture, right? Like if they can bring some sort of winning mentality, and I hate to be cliche, but, you know, if they can bring a winning mentality, they can bring, you know, some sort of level of motivation. I mean, that's what a lot of these great coaches do. I mean, look in New York with Joe Judge, right? Like you wanted to run through a wall with Joe Judge the first time you saw him. Nobody even knew who he was, right? Like I feel like that's so important. I feel like Gruden embodies that. I mean, I'd figure you'd agree with that, being that you played under him for a while.
Well, what I always say about Gruden is his Saturday night speech is pointless because he fires you up so much and you're so ready to go. And now I got to go to bed and get ready for the game tomorrow. So I'm like, you can't go to sleep. Like he gets everybody so fired up, and that room is so pumped up and motivated that you literally are ready to run through a wall. And then, yeah, that wall is to your bedroom to go to bed. So I'm like, what's the point? Can we do this like at 6 a.m, 7 a.m, wake everybody up? That would be the time for Gruden to speak to the team. But yeah, no, he's a great motivator. And that's the thing, you know, he came to Tampa at the right time because Dungy had put together a phenomenal team, great athletes, great people, though, because that's the one thing with Dungy. He wanted guys that were better off the field and they were on the field. And that's what we had created. Yeah. And then you bring Gruden in, who's a motivator, and got these guys to even believe, you know, and then gave us a little spark on offense, which we had been missing. And that was the magic trick, you know, just having that solid defense that we had, and then add a little bit to the offense. And yeah, so everybody, you know, coaches a little different and motivates a little different, but the winning culture started in Tampa with Tony Dungy coming in and getting, and obviously, you know, when can you say you could draft 2 Hall of Famers in the first draft? The Bucs, you know, drafted Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp in the same draft. That's insane, you know? So when you're rebuilding like that, that's a pretty good way to start a rebuilding year, you know, with those 2 guys. And then you had a lot of leadership with like Hardy Nickerson. I got to play with him for a year. So they were, you know, the Bucs were up and coming. The Bucs were changing that mentality. And then when Gruden came in, kind of put us over the top.
So take me through, you know, Super Bowl weekend. That's always a big thing. Like, you know, like I said, you know, for a guy that had aspirations of playing soccer, playing in the World Cup, you know, playing for a club team probably or international team, whatever, you know, being in Super Bowl, Super Bowl week, Super Bowl weekend. Like, you know, take me through your mindset, your process. Like, how did you keep focused? Because, you know, you had a big game in that Super Bowl. Right. So, you know, take me through that.
Well, a couple of things. If I backtrack a little bit, to me, our Super Bowl was the Philadelphia Eagles game. You know, once we beat Philadelphia, I didn't feel like it didn't matter who got to the Super Bowl on the AFC side, we were going to win. We just had to get over that hurdle because Philadelphia had beaten us the 2 years before. We couldn't win in under 40 degrees. There was talk about the cold weather, and we did it. We did it the last game of the year in Chicago, but then getting through Philadelphia, that was to me key. You know, and what was crazy is that back then it was when you finished a championship game, we literally landed in Tampa. I believe it was like 3 a.m. By 6 a.m, we were heading to San Diego because you play that week. We didn't have that week in between, the buffer or the bye week. So we were playing right away. So I just remember everything was a blur. You land, you pack your bags, boom, you're in San Diego. And there was a lot of pressure on the kickers that year with, Janikowski and myself, because the year before, Vinatieri had kicked the game winner to beat the Rams, with the Patriots. So, normally I don't think they would talk to kickers that much. But then thanks to Vinatieri kicking that game winner, that's all we heard all week. Are you confident? Can you do it? Are you confident? I'm thinking you got to do it, because if not, you're like the Buffalo guy that, you can't go back to Norwood. You missed a game winner in the Super Bowl, and then you can't go back to that city for 30 years. So I would have to move out of Tampa. Or you're the hero like Vinatieri. So there's a lot of pressure. So in my mind, I kept thinking, look, man, I gotta get focused. I gotta get right. And I actually had a cold. I didn't feel good that week. So I would practice, and then they send me home to the hotel so I wouldn't get anybody sick. So I got plenty of rest, So I went from practice to the hotel, and then did the media stuff, the media day. And for me, it was really cool because, every Spanish media interviewed me pretty much, because I was the only Spanish speaking player on the team. And everybody in the whole world covers the Super Bowl, especially now having an Argentine born for the first time in a World Cup in the Super Bowl. So I did a lot of interviews back home, and it was so cool to do that, just to be able to show everybody where I was at and TV, radio. So that was really neat to do. And then, to me, the Super Bowl didn't hit me until I got to the game. When we got there with a bus, and you see, instead of seeing Buccaneer flags or Raider flags, you saw Super Bowl flags. It was a neutral stadium, and I'm like, man, we're really here. And yeah, it hit me hard. I got really nervous when we got there, and I tried to settle down in the locker room. But then the warm-up was by far the worst warm-up of my career. Like, I couldn't even make a kick. And it wasn't that I was hitting the ball bad one way where I could correct it. No, one went way right, the other one went way left. And they were shanks. It was so bad that the special teams coach comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, we're going to have to go for 2, or we can't even attempt field goals today. I said, maybe not. I'm like, and he was trying to get me loose and kind of joke. But I know he was nervous because I couldn't make a kick. And it was awful warm-up, and that I may have helped me for the game because I was so stressed out and so focused. And I kept telling myself, this cannot be the day that you kick bad. It cannot. I just kind of fought with myself and yelled at myself, and I cussed at myself, whatever I had to do. But I was like, look, this will not be the day that you kick bad. And then luckily, once I got that first field goal, then I got confidence. I felt like a normal game. Once you get that first game, that first kick in, you're fine.
Oh, dang, Sam.
Sorry about that.
We're all good.
All good. So, Martin, with that whole Super Bowl environment around you, you led the team in points throughout the regular season with 128. So, how did it feel being such a crucial player that in a season that culminated in the franchise's first and only conference championship and Super Bowl championship? How does that feel to you as an individual, knowing you were such a huge part of that?
No, I feel great. It feels great to be a part of the team, period. We had an amazing defense, and we always relied on the defense. I mean, you always would hear Sapp and the defense say, look, give me 17 points, and we got this, So we knew how important each point was and how valuable each point was, because our defense was going to hold the opponents to lower scores. So, and the kicker's usually the leading scorer in the team because you attempt, so many extra points, so many field goals. So I didn't view that as me being, the leading scorer. I viewed it as me doing my job, So, I don't want to take credit for anything of that, because if it wasn't for that defense, and then obviously Gruden, sparking the offense a little bit, we had Brad Johnson as a quarterback. That was amazing. He's, the most humble, nicest guy you could ever meet, such a nice guy. Now, that's why his son's at LSU, and you see him there, how happy he is to watch his son. I mean, his kid, baby was a baby when we were winning the Super Bowl. So it's nice to see these guys, have their kids now playing. But we had, Rob Johnson step in at a couple games when Brad got hurt. And I remember the one game in Carolina that we ended up winning 12-9. Rob started, and then he got hurt. So Sean King had to come in the fourth quarter to throw a couple passes to get us in field goal range for that last field goal. So it was like everybody had a role in it. Even, from the backup to the third string quarterback to every player on that field made something happen. We went through a couple long snappers because our long snapper got injured week 3. So then we had one guy who did okay. We brought another guy in. So it was like, man, it just everything every person on that team put their little piece for winning it. So that's why it's so nice and so awesome that they have the reunions. We had the 10-year reunion. In a few years, we'll have hopefully the 20-year reunion. And these are guys that you may not have seen for 10 years, but you pick up like when you left off and you start talking about family and kids. And it's just a great brotherhood that we created from that team, because it was a good group of humans, more than just football players.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that gets brought up a lot when you talk about NFL history, right? And again, your team that won the Super Bowl gets brought up a lot because, and honestly, it feels like it's for a negative reason, right? Because a lot of people say, you brought up Brad Johnson. A lot of people say, oh, Brad Johnson is one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history to ever win a Super Bowl. And, I wanted to add, but do you feel like that's ridiculous? Like, is that?
I disagree with that so much, because first of all, no, they don't. Anybody can talk, without knowing the guy, his toughness, his leadership, because there's more to a football player than what you see on Sundays. The whole week, his work ethic, the way he led the team, the way he communicates with players, with coaches, with young guys, with older guys. I love Brad, and he's our quarterback. I don't care what they say. I don't care what anybody said. Look, at the end of the day, you can call me the worst kicker to ever win a Super Bowl. I got a Super Bowl ring. So thanks to a lot of guys. Right. So it doesn't matter what anybody says. We got the ring.
That's damn straight right there.
All right, Martin. So take me through, like, when kickers are probably the most scrutinized guys on the field. Like, whether you guys miss a kick, everybody's blaming you guys for the loss. And it's a team sport. There's a lot of things that lead up to that. You guys play your roles. Sometimes you guys make the kick, sometimes you don't. Like, take me through that mindset after, missing a kick and, for a game tying field goal or game winning field goal. Like, how do you bounce back from that? Because obviously, week to week sport, how are you able to kind of like get back into mode and, have that confidence to be able to go up there and kick again after a tough outing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. For me, I built the confidence of my teammates and the support of my teammates in the off season and in training. I would spend the whole off season with a team. I would do all the conditioning, all the running, all the lifting. So I'd be part of that team. So once you did miss, and if I did hit a bad ball or I missed a kick, they knew that it wasn't because I was lazy. They knew it wasn't because I wasn't there. I was, playing golf instead of kicking. So I always had the support of my teammates, and that was huge, because it's horrible to, miss a kick, and when you miss a game tying kick or a game winning kick, you automatically feel like the worst person in the world because you let down these guys that have been kicking their butt. I mean, the kicker barely gets touched, and then the guys that are beating the crap out of each other for 60 minutes are the ones that are suffering because you're bad kick. So it's like the worst feeling in the world. But to have the support of your teammates and the confidence, and that's because I try to work as hard, if not harder than they in the off season and conditioning and training. That way they knew, look, if it went in, great. If it didn't go in, it's not because he's lazy. So I always felt support. And like I was saying earlier, we had a great group of humans. So I always had somebody, tap me on the shoulder, pat me on the back. I remember missing a huge kick and Rondé kind of walking me off the field. Like literally, I didn't even want to go in the locker room. And he walked me off the field, walked me in the locker room. Don't worry about it. We got this. So that type of support, man, how can you not be confident when your teammates are like that nice to you after you miss such a big kick? So yeah, I always had great support by my teammates.
Yeah, I feel like that's super, super important. I think it's funny that, when people talk, they don't realize how hard it is, right? Like a couple of years back, I remember I was in San Antonio with my fiance at the time. And I remember watching the highlight of Cody Parkey's double doink, right, in the playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles, bang, bang. So it kind of makes me think, as far as, in your experience as a kicker, right, comparatively, like how many times compared to, you kick it, you think it might go and it just doesn't, or like how often does that compare to as soon as it leaves your foot, you're just like, that's no good. like that was a bad one.
Yeah, that's I mean, it happens. I mean, it happens where you feel like you hit it so solid, you look up and then it looks good, and then all of a sudden, the wind takes it or it doesn't go where you want it. Right. But it's rare that, when you're used to kicking so much that it's rare that you shank one. I mean, it could happen, but there's ones where you look up and you're just amazed that it's not going in because you felt like you hit it solid. So with kicking, it's so weird because, you know, sometimes the kicks that I felt like I hit clean, I look up and they're not going straight. I'm like, what just happened, you know? And those are the hardest ones to fix because you feel like you did everything right. There's some that I know I picked up my head or I didn't plan right or I slipped or I hit the ground. And I know, look, if it goes in, I'll be lucky. So yeah, the worst feeling in the world is when you know it's not going in because you see most kickers, you know, shift their head and turn their body trying to like make it. We saw it with Tennessee's kicker, you know, when he hit the upright and it didn't go in, where he thought that it was out. There's no way he thought that was going in. You could see it in his face, his reaction. He kind of tilted, it hit in, and then the excitement after it went in because he had no clue that ball would go in, you know. So so yeah, that's it's the hardest second to, you know, when it's not going in because now there's nothing you can do about it.
I always kind of feel like whenever kickers, between the 1 second where you make contact with the ball and from the time that it goes in, time almost kind of stands still. You know, it can feel like the longest 2 to 3 seconds of your life before it actually goes through the uprights or it misses or whatever. So talk to us a little bit about your psychological process of how you can deal with the preparation for kicking in, let's say, like a late game situation with high stakes on the line, whether it's tying or being the go-ahead field goal. What's kind of your mindset going into it?
Yeah, see, what I tried to do was talk to myself. You know, I would talk to myself, try to tell me like positive thoughts, give me some confidence to myself, and just and not put myself in the moment. Treat every kick like it was like a first quarter kick, you know, and treat every kick the same. But I always would find some reason to make the kick. Like, for example, there's one game winner with the Cowboys. That was my first kick as a dad. So I just, the whole time I'm thinking like, I got to make this for Nico. I got to make this for Nico. That was my son. I wanted to fly back from, you know, the Meadowlands to Dallas and be able to enjoy and one day tell him, look, you gave me the strength to make this kick. So I always would find something to like get my mind off of what was going on and give me the reason to make the kick. So that's kind of the way I kind of would motivate myself, talk to myself and forget about the moment. Because there was times that I would line up and, you know, something wasn't feeling right and your legs feel heavy and you're like, man, this then you kind of lose a little confidence. Like, man, and that's when you got to try to snap out of it. So it's a huge mental game. There's so many kickers that can go in the backyard and kick 60-yarders and kick them straight. And then the ones that can handle the pressure, that's teaching yourself to, like, you know, get out of the moment or get into the moment or whatever it works, but you got to be able to focus. That's the biggest thing. Is it getting too loud in the background? I can move.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, it's totally
Not
fine.
at all.
Okay. I didn't expect basketball practice, you know, at this time.
So, you know, you definitely dealt with some injuries in your career, Martin. So, you know, how was that, like, you know, every time you had a big injury, you know, coming back from that and knowing that you still have the confidence of the same player that you were, you know, before the injury? Because, you know, you know how it is in the NFL, like, you know, especially for kickers, like, you know, if you're not available, they kind of throw you to the wayside. So it's like,
right.
You know, how was that preparation, your mindset about, you know, staying positive, staying focused, and make sure that, you know, I got to get back and you know, show everybody that I'm still, you know, one of the best kickers in the NFL?
No, that's a great question, because after the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl year, I started feeling soreness on my adductor, but, you know, the whole year it's either it's a hernia, it's an adductor strain, it's nothing, it's this. So I always had a different story from the doctor, but they're like, no, you're gonna be fine. So physically, I felt so strong everywhere. I felt so fit that it didn't matter. You know, I could deal with the pain and I would kick through it, and I felt fine. The day after the Super Bowl, I do you do the exit physicals, and like, oh, you have a hernia. You know, we can fix it on Wednesday. Perfect. So the problem is that it really wasn't a hernia. It was a sports hernia, which is that it requires an adductor release. I had a misdiagnosis, and then I had the wrong surgery. So after that, there was really, I feel like that kind of ruined my career, because I never felt right after that. It would be a lot of pain. There was weeks that I couldn't practice. So I would go into the game without kicking one ball in the week. So, but it was, and looking back, it's my fault, because I should have, you know, gotten a second opinion. I should have told the team, look, I'm not 100%. I shouldn't kick. But, you know, as a competitor, as a team, you know, because I remember my third year, I strained a hamstring, and then John Lynch ends up kicking off and kind of finishing the game for us. And then they hire a kicker for the last game of the season. And it was the worst feeling in the world to sit on the sideline and watch somebody else do my job. So I never wanted to experience that again. So I would fight through pain. I would fight through anything. I mean, I couldn't even count how many cortisone shots I got in the adductor just to be able to play, and ended up with three adductor surgeries. And it was tough because it wasn't that I didn't have the confidence to make the kick. I didn't have confidence in my leg to be healthy. So at times I felt like, oh, this might be the kick that my leg falls off. That's kind of and as an athlete, you can't go into the game with that mentality, because now you can't focus on your job. So that really hurt me towards the end. I should have just said, look, enough is enough. Let me get it right. And I did have 2 other surgeries to try to get it right. But once they messed it up so bad the first time, I couldn't get it back to normal. And it made football not fun, because I spent more time in training room, doctors, massage therapy, ice baths. So it's like, it went from being the best years of my life to misery, because I spent more time, dealing with doctors and shots than I did enjoying football.
Yeah. Speaking of injuries,
and my percentage wasn't great either, so that didn't help.
Speaking of injuries, your brother had a very interesting one. And it's
I'm glad you said my brother. I'm glad you guys did your research. A lot of people think it's me.
No,
I always say, look, I'm the athlete of the family. I can land the jump.
That's the other guy.
That's the thing I got to ask you, Martin. By the way, just to reset for the people that might just be joining us, we're talking to Martin Gramatica, Super Bowl champion, former kicker of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your brother Bill suffered one of the most famous injuries probably in NFL history, right? Wasn't during
we laugh about it now, yeah.
It wasn't during a practice. It was during a celebration, right? Like, you as a brother, right? Did you give him crap for that? Or like what was your reaction to that injury? I'm sure there was some sympathy, but did you give him at least a little bit of flack?
Well, it's funny because we're literally on the plane to fly to a game, and Rondé's watching the game on his little portable TV, which back then, the technology wasn't there yet. So for him to watch it before we flew out, I'm like, hey, let me watch. And it just happened right before we flew out and lost connection. So I had no idea how severe it was, if it was just a sprain or what. But he's like, yeah, your brother just got hurt jumping around. I'm like, all right, it can't be that serious. That's what I'm thinking. So then I land, I find out, and you got to give him credit for toughing it out and finishing the game, because he ended up still kicking with it, because I tore my ACL and it's not fun. So, but yeah, right away we obviously, you have sympathy, you feel bad, and you don't really say too much. 10, 20 years later, we laugh about it. Anytime somebody has a silly injury or gets hurt doing something dumb, he's going to make that ESPN top 10. So, his name still stays alive because of that. So now we laugh about it. I used to get sensitive, man. I wanted to fight people when they were making fun of him, because, at the time you got to take care of your brother. You got to, and now it's like, you got to kind of laugh a little bit. And it's funny because anywhere besides Tampa, they think it's me. So everywhere I've gone, and I'm like, look, I got to explain myself. So yeah, no, it's not, it's all right now. It's too far. It happened too long ago to get upset about it now.
Yeah, I bet.
Martin, I want to kind of segue into today's NFL. We got divisional games coming up this weekend, but I want to rewind a little bit to a few months ago before the season began. Spending those special years with the Buccaneers, and we had heard about Tom Brady's upcoming NFL free agency after the end of last season. What was your reaction when you found out that not only Tom Brady, but Rob Gronkowski would be coming out of retirement to join him in Tampa Bay?
Well, the first thing I said is, when it happened, I was at the beach with some friends that everybody automatically started calling the ticket office trying to get season tickets. So you're like, you knew right away the excitement of the city. How everybody was like, man, Tom Brady's coming. The way I looked at it was like, what a shame that we get the GOAT in a pandemic. So, you can't give him a proper welcoming. You can't give him a proper press conference, because can you imagine if he had a press conference, you would have media from all over the world. Absolutely. And then the first game, when he's coming out of the tunnel and the smoke and the fireworks are up and there's no fans that cheer him on, I say, what a shame to get the GOAT and we can't really welcome him to Tampa. But man, once we saw him walk through the tunnel and we saw him put the jersey on, it was like so real to have. We've got the GOAT here. You got to give credit to Jason Light and Bruce Arians for convincing him to come to a franchise that hadn't really won. Tampa hadn't won a playoff game since the Super Bowl. They hadn't been in the playoffs since 2007. So it wasn't like he was coming to a team that was right there to win. His mentality, that, like you said, he changed the mentality of the team, and so did Bruce Arians, because when Bruce Arians came last year, he wanted to win the preseason games. When have you heard a head coach talk about winning the preseason game? But he's like, I got to change the mentality of these players. So slowly he started doing that last year. And then with the addition of Tom Brady and Gronk, and then every other free agent, because any free agent or a guy that got released wanted to come to Tampa all of a sudden. And it wasn't because of the money. They would take less money to play with Tom. So yeah, he's made a huge difference. I mean, we're in the playoffs. We won a playoff game because we have Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting. Go ahead, Barry. My bad.
No, go ahead, man. No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
So it's interesting because I've, like I said on my show, I've been really critical of Tom, really critical because, and look, I can't deny that he's had a good season. The guy threw 40 touchdowns. I get that.
Right.
But I know that on balls that were thrown more than 20 yards in the air this year, Tom Brady had a quarterback rating of 59, which, again, for people that understand that 59 is absolutely it's atrocious. So I've always felt that Tom was like the Buccaneers were kind of catering the offense to fit what Tom Brady's strengths were, but not necessarily to the talent of their perimeter players, right? Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they're fantastic deep threats. Antonio Brown being added to that mix also. Do you feel, at least in some sort of capacity, that Tom Brady could have actually been holding this offense back a little bit?
No, never. I feel like, there was a time where people were criticizing the Bucs for the 3 and outs. I said, let's not forget that last year we weren't getting 3 and outs because we were getting pick sixes. So
right.
Let's not get greedy now because we have Tom Brady. We expect touchdowns every time he touches the ball. So no, what I think is you had a year without preseason, without OTAs, without mini camps. So it took a while for this team to gel. It took a while for Tom Brady to get the confidence and to get in rhythm with his teammates. So that's why. Go ahead, guys. That's why it took a while. I think that's the reason why at first we looked off and the team didn't look clean. But once they got in rhythm, once somebody got comfortable with his guys, it just looked like the Tom Brady that we were expecting.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we have a big game coming up this week, Martin, between the Bucs and the Saints. So, this is a staple game for the Bucs. If they win this game, they really have a chance to possibly get to the Super Bowl and be probably the first team to host a Super Bowl and play in that Super Bowl, right? So, what do you think they have to do to be able to overcome that Saints defense that is really stout? They're really well coached. They have a great offense. They have Alvin Kamara. That's one of the best weapons in all of football. And, they have Drew Brees as well. That is a legend in itself. So, you got two legendary quarterbacks going at it. What do you think the Bucs have to do to actually, win that game?
Well, to me, it's the game. You could hear that turnovers will be a factor, and also the trenches. If you protect Tom Brady, you give him time, he's going to be fine. The problem is when we did play him here at home, the Saints got to him. We made him uncomfortable. And we saw Tom Brady throw some passes that we've probably never seen him throw before, just out of frustration, I believe. So that's the key. You got to protect and give him time, give him a good pocket to throw in. And we have plenty of weapons, And now the other thing, you have the addition of Antonio Brown that's gelling right now. And he wasn't gelling at the beginning because he had just gotten here. So now, who do you double team? Do you double team Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, or Antonio Brown? So there's so many weapons. And then the other side as well, we've got to get to Drew Brees. If you let Drew Brees pick you apart and you play zone defense without any pressure, then we're going to have a long night. So I feel like the combination of the pressure in Drew Brees and avoiding the pressure on Tom Brady, and also the turnovers. Turnovers are going to be key. That's for sure, because it's one of those where, these teams could both score every time they touch the ball. So you don't want to give them an extra possession.
Martin, remaining in these divisional games, you kind of have two themes with quarterbacks. You have the older veteran Super Bowl winners with Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady. And on the other side, you have the kind of younger, some playoff experience guys with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And finally, you have Patrick Mahomes also. And then can't forget about Baker Mayfield, who is still there. What excites you the most when you see kind of the older generation when compared to the new generation? What excites you the most when you see kind of the competition between the two of them?
Well, it's exciting to see guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers that are older still performing with the young guys, because we see that the so much talent with the young quarterbacks, and it's a different style, the more of the mobile, the dual threat in some cases. So I feel like the older guys are still that old school, sit in the pocket and pick you apart. So if you have a good offensive line, you protect these guys, they're going to beat you with their arm. Where the younger guys are both, threats with their legs and their arms. So it's great to see the veterans still performing at an elite level. It's unbelievable that in their 40s they can compete with these guys. And still, because if you think about it, Aaron Rodgers probably going to be the MVP. Yeah. You have, Drew Brees and Tom Brady playing at an elite level at that age. Yeah. And now you have these young guys that when these guys retire, there's so much talent at the quarterback position that the league's still going to be exciting. It's not going to be one of those where we have, 3 or 4 years where like these quarterbacks are horrible, not fun to watch. So it's exciting for the NFL to have these up and coming young kids, young quarterbacks that can still play.
Funny thing about Barry and I is that we're both Dallas Cowboy fans. So
I'm sorry about that. This year.
Yeah, thank you. But
it's funny. My co-host is she's a huge Cowboys fan, so I've had so much fun this year.
Yeah,
I had Victory Mondays a lot. She not so much.
What a roller coaster it's been this year to be a Cowboy fan. But even
5 years, yeah.
The muff snap. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Tony Romo.
Take us through that, please.
Dropping that. Yeah, you got to take us through that moment, Martin.
Well, the thing is, Tony Romo, at the beginning of that season, he was a backup to Drew Bledsoe.
Right.
So then Drew Bledsoe, I believe, gets hurt, or I don't know if he was playing bad. By the time I got to Dallas, because I got there last minute or last few weeks, he was the starting quarterback and the holder. So a lot of times, when we didn't get the first down and we had to go for the field goal, he would be talking to the tight end. Oh man, how can I forget his name now? Your tight end, Witten, Jason Witten.
Jason Witten, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I feel bad. I don't want to. So they would talk and be like, hey, why didn't you do this? Why didn't we do this? So, and at times I had to call, hey, Tony, look, you got to hold, buddy. Let's go, man. We got a field goal. He'd forget that he was a holder. So I think that may have happened in that play where, we were literally a yard away because that was a 19-yard field goal. So we were literally a yard away from scoring a touchdown. So I think in his mind, he was still upset about that and maybe lost track of, that he had a hold and we had a field goal. So, there's the balls that game were a little bit slicker than usual for some reason. I don't know. And I'm not saying they did it on purpose, just the way they were brushed. The balls are different now. We used to have the K ball that were shipped directly to the stadium and they were brushed. And we would tell the ball boys, brush the first 4 the best you can. And then we hope to never get the ball 5, because you kept using the same ball. So maybe it's one of those new balls that didn't get brushed and it was slicker, but yeah, it was sad because, man, we had a team there, and I feel bad because that kick or that muff snap cost me my job, because after that, Bill Parcells retires. They bring Wade Phillips in, and Wade Phillips, I was not the kicker in his plans. I could tell right away I was not going to be his kicker. So that kind of hurts. I really love Dallas. Besides Tampa, I always say, Dallas was like my favorite place to play just because of the organization and also the city. I love the city.
Yeah. I do have I have one more question for you. And before we get to the question that we ask every guest that we have on this, a couple of years ago, the field goal, or I shouldn't say the field goal, the point after was moved back a little bit, right? It was it was too easy. It was too automatic. They moved it back. You being a former NFL kicker, I think it's pretty simple to ask you, what are your thoughts?
I hate it, man. I hate it for kickers. I mean, it's entertaining for the rest of the fans and entertaining because it's not 100% anymore. It's not a guarantee, because right now you score a touchdown and you got to sweat it out at times. It's not 100%, So, but for the kickers, the old extra point, that used to be when you kind of worked on your craft. If you weren't hitting the ball well and you fell off a little bit, you knew you could work on something during the extra point and it was still going to go in if you mishit it because it was so short. Now, the distance that it's in, if you don't hit the ball clean and solid, you're going to miss it. So I think mentally it played a big role in why some kickers are struggling. And then the ones that can handle it mentally more, the long extra point and getting their confidence other ways other than the short extra point, then those are the guys that are doing better. So yeah, I think it's changed kicking for sure. It's definitely a lot more pressure knowing that, it's a field goal, really, not an extra point. The way I equate it for people to really understand it, it would be, a basketball. Okay, the free throw now is from the 3-point line, but we still call it a free throw. So when you miss it, you just missed a free throw. So in your mind, you're like, man, I missed a free throw. And these guys in their mind, they're like, they missed an extra point, but it's really not. So that's why I feel mentally, because back in the day when you missed an extra point, you didn't even want to walk on your sideline because it didn't rarely happen. So something major must have happened for you to miss it. So anytime you missed an extra point, I didn't even want to walk back to my sideline. I'm like, I don't even want to face my coach, my teammates. It's so embarrassing. Now it's a little bit different. So I think that's why it just mentally is messed with some kickers.
It couldn't have happened that often for you, Martin. I mean, you only missed 2 extra points in your entire professional career. So again, I think it would have been appropriate to ask you for that question right there. But okay, so I know we've kind of.
I would have missed a lot more now, though.
Well, look, I think a lot of kickers share in your sentiment. So I don't think that we could blame anybody for that. So before we let you go, this is the question that we ask every guest. Who in your mind is the greatest athlete of all time in any sport?
You guys there? Sorry, lost you for a second. You guys there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, can you see me?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, so I'll re-ask
Okay.
the question, Martin. Who in your mind is the greatest athlete ever in any sport?
The greatest athlete ever. I have my daughter here pointing, and she said her, but she's on her way. I can say she's better than both of her brothers. I'm a huge Diego Maradona fan and Messi fan, so I would have to say, to me, those are the guys. But you always can say Jordan. There's so many great athletes, but I have to say Diego Maradona for what he did and what he meant to the country. You saw how a country celebrated him when he passed away, what he meant to the country, and what he so that, to me, that was my favorite athlete growing up, and I feel like he's the best.
Diego Maradona. Pencil it in, tally it up. We'll see how many Diego Maradona answers that we do get.
Right.
Certainly
Probably not too many, but
hey, look,
it needs to be more.
That's part of the reason why we do this, is because I feel like the more people that we ask, because a lot of people don't even know. Like when you ask them that question, they're just like, God, I don't know. There's so many. There's Jordan, there's Brady, there's Babe Ruth, there's Jackie Robinson. Like there's so many of these great. Roger Federer is up there. Like guys like that, Tiger Woods. Nobody even knows. So it's interesting to see what kind of different answers we get. And Diego Maradona is somebody that I did not expect to hear. So
Not a bad choice, though.
Good.
I expected that.
Did you?
Well, listen, Martin Gramatica, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for, joining us today. It was a great interview. We had a lot of fun. Hopefully we can be able to do this again sometime. If the Bucs are in the Super Bowl, maybe we can get you again. What do you think?
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate it. Sorry for me being outside and not so professional, but
not at all.
Don't worry about it.
Love it. Love it.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for having me. I had a great time. Great interview. Good job, guys.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Have a good day.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Man. That was Martin. Great interview. What do you guys think about that, man? He was so professional. He's so articulate. He really gave me some insight about, how kickers think, what their their technique is and what their thought process and how they prepare. Kickers are just like you said, kickers nowadays in the NFL are actually athletes. They're no longer just guys that practice and go golfing anymore. They really take the time to focus on their craft and try to be better every day. So, it's really, really good to hear from, an NFL kicker that, people don't really, I don't want to say respect, but they don't give them their due. You know what I mean? They really don't give them enough credit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, Barry. And like I said, or even like he said, look, if you you remember, if a quarterback throws a pick, you remember it for a week.
Right.
If a kicker misses a kick,
It's
you remember it for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like it's something that lingers. And for somebody, and I genuinely feel like kickers, sometimes get taken for granted. For players that get taken for granted so much in the NFL, they just hold so much weight.
Yeah.
They just do. And I'm really glad that he liked my Gruden impression.
Yo, it's pretty good.
Good for
You
my
nailed
ego,
it.
man.
You nailed it.
So that was great. That was great.
That's all for All Even Live exclusive. I'm Barry Grant. Mike, go ahead.
Mike Guido here with you. Great to have you with us.
Matt Cataruzolo, thank you guys for joining us.
All right, man. We see you guys next week. Take care.